In 1989, a young Indigenous woman named Alberta Williams was murdered in British Columbia. For 30 long years, her case went completely cold, just another name on a tragically long list. But then, a breakthrough came from the most unexpected place you could imagine. Not from some new technology, but from a forgotten stack of old handwritten notebooks. Now, you have to understand, Alberta's case isn't some isolated incident. It's part of a painful history where families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls have felt ignored, their cases mishandled. As Joyce Carpenter, the mother of another victim, put it so heartbreakingly, it often felt like their children were just written off, like they didn't matter. But here's where this story takes a turn you just don't see coming. In Alberta's case, one retired officer, a guy named Gary Kerr, he never let it go. Decades later, he reached out, and he was holding the one thing that could finally unlock the truth: his own detailed, handwritten notes from the original investigation. So first, let's dive into this unlikely hero of our story, the cop who actually cared. His dedication is so incredible because, honestly, it stands in such stark contrast to a system that has so often been accused of failing the very people it's supposed to protect. You see, there is this deep historical mistrust between police and Indigenous communities. It's been fueled by decades of families reporting their loved ones missing, only to feel like they were completely dismissed. We're talking widespread allegations of racism getting in the way of real police work, something even the head of the RCMP has admitted is a problem within the force. This is the world this case existed in, which makes one officer's simple act of remembering so unbelievably powerful. Right, so this officer was Gary Kerr. Back in '89, he was one of the investigators on Alberta's murder. But here's the thing. Instead of just boxing up the file and forgetting about it, he held onto his personal notebooks. Every interview, every potential lead, every single question that was never answered, he kept it all, preserved in his own handwriting, just waiting for someone to finally read it again. So, what kind of secrets were hiding in those notebooks? Let's crack them open and see how these forgotten pages could finally solve a case that's been silent for 3 decades. The first major clue takes us right back to the last few hours of Alberta's life. What did people actually see that night at the bar where she was last spotted? Well, a witness account from a woman named Eva, right there in Kerr's notebook, paints this incredibly chilling picture. She saw Alberta at a table, and she was crying. And her uncle Jack Little was just standing behind her, waiting for her. Eva told the police she got this really eerie feeling from the whole scene, a final haunting image that she said just never left her. But get this, maybe the most explosive piece of information wasn't what was in the notebooks, but what was missing. It came from a witness who says she gave police a huge tip way back in 1989, a tip that was apparently never even written down. A woman named Vera Derrick came forward and said she got an anonymous phone call right after Alberta vanished. The caller was another woman who claimed she'd been at the same party Alberta was at, and she gave this terrifyingly specific tip. She said Alberta had been killed and that her body was dumped near a local communications tower. And here's the kicker. Vera insists she reported this call to the police at the time. I mean, think about that. A tip, possibly from someone at the party, pinpointing the exact location where Alberta's body would eventually be found. And according to Vera, the police didn't even listen. So you'd think a missed tip like that is bad enough, right? Well, it wasn't just that. The investigation was an absolute maze of tangled stories and, as we're about to see, a huge piece of potentially crucial evidence that was lost. This timeline, it just highlights a massive what-if in this whole investigation. On September 6th, now that's 4 days before Alberta's body was even discovered, police found a pile of bloody clothing just off the road. And the description of those items, it was a near-perfect match for what Alberta was last seen wearing. Just think about this for a second. The discovery included a blue sweater and a black slip-on shoe. When Alberta's body was finally found, she was partially undressed, and these were some of the very items that were missing. And yet, for reasons that still don't make any sense, investigators at the time ruled out that the bloody clothes belonged to her. A potential goldmine of forensic evidence just dismissed. And then you have the witnesses. This is where it gets really messy. One person, Teresa, was absolutely positive she saw Alberta get into a white van. But another couple, Alice and Randy, were just as sure it was a black truck. And then a third witness, Wayne Benson, he remembers this really distinct pukey green truck with a canopy. Three different witnesses, three completely different vehicles. It's a perfect example of how an investigation can get so confusing when memories fade and stories just don't line up. Okay, so after all those years of dead ends, contradictions, and so many unanswered questions, where does the case even stand today? Well, the combination of those old notebooks and brand new technology has finally carved out a new path forward. And for the first time in a long time, there's a real glimmer of hope. Two key things have completely changed the game. First, modern science. Investigators were able to successfully extract a viable DNA profile from a cigarette butt that was left behind by a person of interest. That's huge. And second, because of all this new attention, the RCMP has officially confirmed that Alberta's case is now very active and a top priority. And so this is the question we're left with. This entire cold case was reignited by one retired officer who just couldn't forget and a set of notebooks he refused to throw away. It's such a powerful reminder that sometimes the key to finding justice isn't some flashy new piece of evidence, but just the simple act of going back, revisiting the past, and finally listening to the secrets it's been trying to tell us all along.